What's cracking, big dogs? Welcome back to another episode of Thursday Night Recaps. Honestly, I wanted to get this out to you guys earlier. I told myself I was going to stay up. It was like midnight. I'm like, I'm going to record this video. And then I thought about it. I'm like, okay, Brett Rippon played Sam Darnold, and I went to bed. So this is not going to be coming out to you guys as early as I had hoped. I don't even know who's playing next Thursday night. It can't be as bad as this. So hopefully I'll get it out to you guys a little bit earlier. I think last week I put this type of video out at like 8 at night because I scheduled it to upload. I left for the day. I came back. It didn't upload. So a lot of things went down. I'm getting a little bit better. So a little progress never hurt. Next week, if it's not the Jets versus the Broncos, I promise it'll be out before whenever this one comes out. So hopefully you guys will enjoy whatever the hell I'm about to talk about because there's not much to talk about. But before we get into that, let's hit our fake intro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I guess we'll start on the Jets side of the ball because nothing happened there. Quarterback, Sam Darnold fucking stinks. This guy, he's the Jason Tatum of the NFL where everybody's like, oh, but he's so young. He's going to get better. Jason Tatum got better. Sam Darnold is probably one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. I think it's safe to say, and you can put it on Gase all you want, but you got to realize even in Dynasty, right? Even if this guy is 21, 22 years old, his number one receiver of the future looks to be Denzel Mims, whose hamstrings are rivaling Will Fuller's. He's got Jamison Crowder, who's like 5'8". He puts up 100 yards every single time he plays, but he can't stay healthy. They had some Jeff Smith. Like that's a creative player on Madden. That's like not even a real person. He was out there. He had like 80 yards. He's not somebody I'm interested in at all. They probably still have like Sharon Peak and Solomon Hill. Like I think that's a basketball player. They just have nothing on this team worth throwing to. And he's been in the league. This is his third year now. He hasn't been good for fantasy in any of them. The guy, I was about to say he has no rushing upside, but that's basically the only thing he did this past week was run the ball. That is not something I expect him to do ever again. I'm pretty sure that one run was like more yards than he had all of 2019, which if that is fake facts, whatever, if it's real, I believe it because the guy doesn't run at all. He's immobile unless he's up against the Denver Broncos, pretends to slide 7 times in one play, doesn't slide, and then trots his way into the end zone for a 42-yard house call. It's not looking good for him, and people rank him really high in Dynasty because he's young and they hope he's going to get better. But you got to realize he's going to be going through a coaching change. He's going to have to bring new weapons into this offense for him to get better. And if those things don't happen, he doesn't go through a coaching change, and they don't bring new weapons in, which would take time to transition, then he's going to be stuck with Adam Gase and stuck with a shitty receiving core. So it's just not looking good in New York. I mean, the Jets are basically a poverty franchise, and that's saying a lot coming from me as a Chargers fan. So Sam Darnold for redraft, just because he had that one long run, don't go and try to pick him up. Don't ever stream him. He is one of the biggest trap plays of all time, and I don't think anybody's even going out and trying to pick him up. So he's somebody I am hands off with. Somebody else that is hands off, Kalen Ballage. This guy cannot catch a pass, even though he caught a few yesterday. He looks like if Bilal Powell ate Bilal Powell but forgot to eat the hands. He is honest. I was about to say one of the worst running backs in the league, but it's hard when you can argue he's not even the worst running back on his own team because Frank Gore went out there, put out a Frank Gore stat line. I'm going to check what it was right now because when I checked, it was like 10 rushes for 19 yards. And that's just, you can pencil Frank Gore in for 1.9 yards a carry every week, and I wouldn't think that you're brash for doing so. He finished the game 13 for 30. That's pretty good. And a catch. Okay, maybe I was shitting on Frank Gore a little bit too hard. But when you're in a backfield with Frank Gore, Kalen Ballage, and LaMichael Pirine, I don't even know why I'm talking about this. It's one of the ugliest things I've ever seen. So we're going to move past that. Le'Veon Bell, if you have him and you kept him on your COVID list and your COVID IR spot, you have so much more willpower than me. I probably would have dropped him at this point because there's no chance he's going to average more than like 3.5 yards per carry behind that offensive line in that offense. As for the receiving game, Jamison Crowder is good, but Jamison Crowder is also probably going to play 7 games this year. He is not known for staying healthy. When he's on the field, he's guaranteed like to see 10 to 11 targets a week just because they have no other receiving weapons on this team. He made a few nice grabs. He had that one nice reception deep down the field where he basically caught the cornerback's arm and the ball just happened to be there. So Sam Darnold made at least one good throw yesterday. But I don't know. For him, the injury risk is there. The inconsistency of the offense is there. Sometimes you want to chase volume, but when your volume isn't really – it's not necessarily good volume because it's not red zone volume. It's not deep down the field all too much. It's kind of just empty looks. He's just a discount version of a Tyler Boyd type of guy. So he's a fringy wide receiver 3 for me. As far as the tight ends go on this side of the field, Chris Herndon, I just feel bad talking about this team because there's not much positive to say. Chris Herndon's supposed to be some like athletic freak out of Miami who's supposed to be the next Jimmy Graham, next Greg Olson. Turns out the guy just isn't good at football. This is going to be like the second straight year Ryan Griffin, UConn product, outproduces him, outperforms him. I put out a tweet. I said Chris Herndon would be really good at football if he was actually good. Like he's not good. I'll just put it that way. He's not good. If you have him, drop him. If you tried to stream him because you had Jonnu Smith or even like Eric Ebron and that game got canceled, you had to pay the price because Chris Herndon isn't getting the looks, and the looks that he is getting, he's dropping. So as far as the whole Jets offense goes, looking back, I mean, Jamison Crowder is the only really ownable piece here. As far as dynasty goes, if you want to pick up Jeff Smith, go for it. But I mean, he's probably going to be on the practice squad or off the team in a few weeks. There's just not much to look forward to on the Jets offensive side of the ball. Defensively, they look good, but they also played Brett Rippon. Actually, they didn't even look good. They gave up like fucking 1,000,000 points. They just had the pick six where Brett Rippon threw into triple coverage. So even the defensive side of things, I don't know. I don't see how this team isn't a top 3 pick this year, and I don't see how they talk themselves out of a Trevor Lawrence if they're at number 1 overall, because Sam Darnold hasn't proven anything in this league to be a franchise type of quarterback. And I know that's not fair because he isn't being surrounded by the best supporting cast, but they've also decided to keep Adam Gase around through this week, which I think is like just an indictment on the ownership there. So I wouldn't be surprised if Trevor Lawrence steps into town next year. Hopefully Sam Darnold gets traded and finds himself a new home where they actually want to surround him with weapons and in a decent enough situation. Maybe New Orleans wants to make a move for him because I'm not sure that Jameis Winston is what Sean Payton wants to have behind center. I mean, he'd rather trot Taysom Hill out there and fumble the ball every other play. So I don't know. It's a lot of conjecture. It's a lot of wishful thinking for Sam Darnold. So if there's somebody that believes in him in your dynasty league, just ship him off while you can, because I don't see how his value gets any higher with the situation that he's in. Moving on to the Denver Broncos. This team also isn't very good, but they have at least a few enticing people to talk about. We'll start with Brett Rippon. I'm convinced he's better than Drew Lock, and that's not saying much because I don't think Brett Rippon is good at all. I just think the quarterback stable that they have there is a bunch of guys that are good at a bunch of different things. And by good, I mean mediocre. So we have Drew Lock, who has a really big arm but isn't accurate. We have Jeff Driscoll, who's really mobile but doesn't run a ton. And then we have Brett Rippon, who's very accurate, not a big arm, and throws 3 picks and a pick 6 into triple coverage. So it's just, what's that thing? Is it like the Exodia from Yu-Gi-Oh, where you like mix everything together and it creates like one big monster? If you had the Exodia of Denver Broncos quarterbacks, it would end up being Kirk Cousins. So there's really not much to look forward to in the Denver Broncos passing game in terms of consistency, just because the quarterback play is fucking atrocious. As far as the running game goes, Melvin Gordon had a kind of pedestrian day before he ripped off that 40-yard touchdown at the very end where Brett Rippon looked like the best offensive lineman on the field. This isn't to say that I don't like Melvin Gordon. Obviously, he kind of stabbed me in the back as a Chargers fan because he turned down 4 for 40. Thought he was worth more than that. Lost his job to an undrafted free agent. Got 2 for 16. And is probably going to lose his job to an undrafted free agent again this year. But just looking at his upcoming schedule, I know he gets the New England Patriots this week. But after that, he gets the Dolphins, the Chiefs, the Falcons, the Raiders, the Chargers all in a row. The Saints are tough. And then the Chiefs, the Panthers, the Bills are decent. The Chargers, the Raiders. So he has basically a very, very soft schedule for the rest of the season. And I know his workload this week isn't going to be indicative of what's going to happen going forward, just because it was a game where they were leading a lot of the time. So the rushing upside was there because they were able to pound the rock and try to chew clock, as well as Philip Lindsay not being able to play. I mean, Royce Freeman is out there a little bit, but Royce Freeman is absolutely awful. So as Philip Lindsay comes back into the fold, he's going to pick up some of the rushing work. The receiving work, I still think, is Melvin Gordon's because he's a far superior pass catcher. I also think that the goal line work is there, so he gets a lot of the valuable looks on this offense. But volume as a whole is definitely going to go down. And the other thing that concerns me, too, is week 1, he fumbled. Once he fumbled, Philip Lindsay was out there on the next series. Yesterday, he had a little angle route. He dropped it. They were saying, I don't know, the people in the booth were like, oh, it would have been a touchdown. He was wide open. I guess there's a safety there, but it's also a safety on the Jets, so it probably would have been a touchdown. They're correct, but he makes a lot of mistakes. I know he fumbled a lot in very important situations on the Chargers. He's not necessarily the most clutch player. The clutch gene is not there for Melvin Gordon. So not to say I think he's going to lose his job, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's weeks here and there where he fumbles and they just relegate him to the backup job that week in favor of Philip Lindsay. Not like that's any different from any other type of running back. Like Chris Carson we saw last year fumbled a few times, and then Rashad Penny started to get a bigger workload. But I just think the trust they have in Philip Lindsay and the skepticism about Melvin Gordon's fumbling woes, or at least what he showed week 1. I don't think he's a guy who's going to fumble all the time, but if he were to, I think that they wouldn't be uncomfortable handing over the reins to Philip Lindsay for a game or two. But in my opinion, he's still a middling RB2, low-end RB2 type of player that, if you have a deep starting roster, he's somebody that is going to be starting for you every single week. As far as the receiving game goes, apparently Noah Fant looked to have fractured his ankle, but now I guess he's okay. So I don't know what to say there. I basically don't like any tight ends except the top 5 or 6 guys. And you could argue Noah Fant is slowly making his way into that conversation. But with the quarterback play there being what it is and him not having the best hands in the league, I know he's been better this year than he was in college and last season, but I don't know. It's just hard to trust any sort of tight end that isn't seeing like 8+ targets a game. I know he can break big plays, and that's what you want to see out of tight ends as well. But if Brett Rippon's me back there, or Drew Lock, or I guess any of the quarterbacks, just because they all kind of stink, he's not somebody I'm too high on. As far as dynasty goes, I think the quarterback situation will clear up a little bit. I mean, they expected Drew Lock to be some sort of all-star this year just because they drafted KJ Hamler and they have Cortland Sutton. They drafted Jerry Jeudy. They thought that adding weapons around him would make him a better player himself, even though he was kind of thrown into the fire. I think as he starts to develop a little bit more, then you can trust Noah Fant a little bit more in dynasty than you can in redraft. As far as the wide receivers go, KJ Hamler, hamstring again. He's basically shaping up to be the next Deshaun Jackson. I do like him as a player. I think he's a really good route runner. He's obviously very quick and very fast and very twitchy. But if you're not going to be on the field, it doesn't really do much for you. Jerry Jeudy, his day was saved by that deep throw that Brett Rippon surprisingly attempted. It was in Pierre Desir's hands, and Jerry Jeudy just basically plucked it out of there, backtracked his way into the end zone. The way his knees were bending, I don't know. Some people would probably be concerned that he tore both ACLs on the catch. He had a decent day when all things are said and done, but I mean, again, it's just the inconsistencies of this quarterback play. And I know it wasn't the best game script for them when they were playing ahead and they didn't really need to throw the ball a whole lot. But when Tim Patrick is eating and Jerry Jeudy isn't getting consistent looks, that's when I kind of start to worry. So as far as Jerry Jeudy goes, I know I just said that their upcoming schedule is really soft. So I could see him being a decent flex play that you're going to be able to not stream because he's not going to be on your waiver wire most likely, but somebody you can plug and play in bye weeks or against easy matchups, like when they play the Falcons, when they play the Raiders, when they play the Saints, the Chiefs, the Panthers, basically any of these soft defenses or games where they're likely to be playing from behind. I think Jerry Jeudy at this point is going to be the alpha in this receiving game for as long as Cortland Sutton is sitting. So he can be a decent enough upside play there, especially when you expect the Denver Broncos, even if the quarterback play is bad, to be trailing most of the game. And I guess lastly, we can just touch on Cortland Sutton's dynasty value. He's a decent buy low. I know I've seen a few people try to sell him. If you can get him for what looks to be like a late 2021 first-round pick, I know the wide receiver crop next year is supposed to be really solid and really strong. But what we've seen out of Cortland Sutton throughout his entire career, I know his rookie year was a little bit down. He was competing for targets with a veteran in Emmanuel Sanders, but last year he was incredible no matter who they had at quarterback, whether it was Joe Flacco, Brendan Allen, or Drew Lock. Even this year in the beginning of the season, he looked decent. So he's somebody that I am willing to pay a 2021 first for, especially if you're not competing this year. Or if you are competing and you want to sell your own first because you expect it to be late, and you can, basically sell what will be like the 110 to 112 if you really strongly believe that, for a guy who is a legitimate wide receiver too, and that's what he'll return for you next season. So I think that about wraps it up. This was real tough. And I'm going to check right now who's playing next week, Thursday night, because it's tough to ramble about two teams I really don't give a damn about. Okay, the Buccaneers and the Bears. I can't wait to talk about Nick Foles, and I can't wait to talk about Rob Gronkowski. That's going to be awesome. And Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. And David Montgomery. There's so many fat running backs in that game. I'm going to have a blast. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. Leave some feedback. Tell me if you are interested in Jeff Smith. Tell me if you're interested in anything that happened this Thursday night. And let me know why you spent your Thursday night watching football. And if you didn't, then bravo, because I did, and I'd definitely be a lot better off if I hadn't. So hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great Friday. Leave a thumbs up if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. And we'll see you guys Monday with Mike's Market Watch Monday segment.